Hey guys, RC Bros Productions here. In this RC workshop video, we're going to be showing you how to rebuild a Traxxas differential for a Rustler, Bandit, Slash, and Stampede, the two-wheel drive versions. I believe they all share the same transmission and differentials. So first off, I have received my rebuild kit from Traxxas. It comes with these little 4 gears here. I believe these are called idler gears, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It comes with these 4 pins right here. This short little pin right here, and these 2 gears right here, and here is the old diff case. Before you start putting it back together, assuming you stripped your old gears, and this is why you're rebuilding it, you have to clear out the debris and the little stripped pieces of the old gears before you put the new ones in, because they will just grind there, and as soon as you put it back together, it will completely strip your new gears out right away. So as you can see, I removed all these little metal chunks over here from the old gears that got stripped. Just be very sure that you clean this out properly and there's nothing left in there. Also make sure you have some differential grease or some sort of lubricant for your diff before you put it back together, because you don't want to put it together with dry gears. First off, we're going to be starting with these 4 pins right here. We're going to be taking 2 of them, and we're going to stick them in the little holes that stick out further on the case cover itself, like that. Just like that. And then we're going to take the other 2, and we're going to stick them inside the differential itself in the holes that are sticking out further. Oh, a little hard to do there. There we go, there's 1. There's the other, now they're both in. Now we're gonna be taking the gears, putting them on like this, on those 2, and then those like that. Next, we'll be taking these 2 and putting one through the hole on the diff case like this. Whoop. Popped up the gear there. Make sure that they're aligned. There we go. And then one through the hole on there. And then we're going to be taking this shorter pin, a little shorter, and it's a little wider than the other pins. We're going to be putting that in the center of that, like that. And before we close this up, we're going to make sure that we fill it with some grease. Make sure to use a generous amount too. Not too much and not too little. There we go, that should be enough. And then as you turn it, it'll work itself into all the gears. And now we're just going to be putting it together here. Might take a second to get everything lined up. Give it a little twist. There we go, it's lined up. Feels smooth. Just give it a couple twists to get all that differential grease worked in there. All right, and now we're going to be taking the 4 screws that seal that hold the cover on and tightening them down. Okay, now that we have the differential back together, we're going to be putting it in the transmission itself. Okay, now that we have our completed differential case here, we're going to be putting it back into the transmission. This is a little more difficult in my scenario because I can't actually take my motor off. Long story short, the Allen wrench, the tip of the Allen wrench actually broke off in my grub screw for the pinion gear. So I can't take the pinion gear off, meaning I can't take the motor out. So this motor is basically permanently stuck to this transmission until either it burns out or something happens to the motor and I can drill that out. Because once you drill that out and drill a hole through the shaft of the motor itself, the motor is most likely just junk. So, okay, so make sure that everything is lined up, that you've got all your gears in there. There's also a little washer, a little shim right there that belongs right there. Make sure that's in place. Depending on your model of, I think there's different models of differential cases, or different sizes, I should say. You got to make sure there's a shim on either side. I believe we don't have a shim for this specific case. So, okay, so we're going to be putting it in. Make sure that it's like this, because if you put the gears in this way, it's not going to work. It's got to be this way so it hooks up with these gears here. So just slide it in like that, and now it's connected. So make sure that it's working like that, and I would say give it a little bit of differential grease in there before you close it up. Just some extra lubricant. There we go. Get it on these over here. There we go. And as you turn it, you can turn it there and kind of work it through. It'll get itself worked through. Okay, so while making sure that the shims are in place, make sure that you got all the shafts lined up. Just plop it back together there. Whoop. I have a piece of electrical tape here. I'm gonna take that off to cover the hole there. Okay, now that it's back together, take your screws that hold it together and just get them all back in. All right, now that we have the transmission back together, make sure that your gear mesh is set properly. In this case, it is. We're going to be putting the differential, or actually the gear case back on, whatever you want to call it, the case that covers these two gears. But before we do that, I'm just going to add a little more diff grease to the transmission here through the bottom before I cover it up with electrical tape. There we go, and then in order to work it through, just give it a couple turns. There we go. That should be well lubricated. All right, now this isn't extremely crucial, but this prevents foreign objects from entering. I would cover it up with a piece of electrical tape here. Doesn't have to stick to it because it's going to be sandwiched between this and the chassis, so as long as it's there. Okay, we'll cut it at about right there. And now just put it like that. Okay. Okay, now we're going to be putting the transmission to the chassis. I'm going to be attaching it to the chassis here. So just make sure that you have that piece of tape there. Let's get these wires out of the way. Line it up with the slots right here. And just plop it right down like that. Make sure that's out of the way for when we put the shock tower on later. So we should have 6 screws. 2 smaller ones like this, and 4 larger ones like this. Okay, I'll do the smaller ones first. All right, now that we have the transmission installed, we're going to be installing the shock tower assembly and the A-arms, this entire assembly here. So how we're going to do this is make sure that you have it aligned the right way here. This is how it goes right here. So gonna make sure that you've got these screw holes lined up, and then there's 4 screws that go in those holes there that hold the shock tower to the actual chassis. And then in my case, there are clips, C-clips that hold the pins on the suspension pins. And then I will be installing the drive shafts as well. All right, so now we're going to be installing the shock tower with the 4 screws. All right, now that we have the 4 screws installed holding the shock tower, we're going to be plugging in the wires. Okay, now we're going to be putting in the suspension pins that hold the A-arms to the bulkhead. Or in this case, the transmission itself is the bulkhead. There we go, that one went in. There, that one went in now. Okay, now we're going to be taking the E-clips and clicking them into place here on this side of the pin. Okay. These can sometimes be a pain because they tend to go flying if you hit them the wrong, or if you squeeze them the wrong way. There we go, that one's installed. And now for the other side. All right, now that I've got both of the E-clips or C-clips in, I'm going to be putting the pins in for the drive shafts. I am going to be using thread lock to hold in the pins because they do have a tendency to back out. Blue thread lock, that is. Do not use red thread locker because you won't be able to remove it. First, make sure you find where the threads are, which side the threads are on your drive shafts. They're on this side right here. Line it up, stick it on. All right, now we're going to be using the thread locker. Shake it up first. Going to dab a little bit on the threads. There we go. Whoops. This stuff tends to spurt out. Okay. Make sure it's pretty tight, but be careful not to strip it. Don't make it too tight. Now we're going to be doing the other side. So now we're going to be putting on the gear cover, gear case, whatever you want to call it. The bigger screw goes right here, and the smaller screw goes in the bottom hole. These screws don't need to be particularly tight. They just hold the cover on. And this cover, there we go. All right, now we're going to be putting the pins in and then the hex hubs, the wheel hubs on the end, and then attaching the wheels. All right, now all we have to do for this is just obviously slide the pin through the hole there. Oh. There we go. And then just pop on the hex hub there. All right, and now it's complete. All you have to do left is just get the wheels back on, and then it's ready to go. Thanks for watching. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Bye.